Greetings. Welcome to my Midnight Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and a few days ago, my good buddy and fellow YouTuber Sean Erschen tagged me in a video that was the top 10 movie genre tag, which is your top 10 favorite movie genres and your favorite movie from each genre. And so another user by the name of JacksonKnight Productions commented on that video that I did. I made my response, and he commented on that on my video and said that he suggested that I do a top 10 horror subgenres video with my favorite movie from each subgenre, each horror subgenre, which is a great idea. So yeah, so it was an idea by JacksonKnight Productions, and I'm making it into a tag video. So that's right. So this is the top 10 horror subgenre tag, my 10 favorite horror subgenres and my favorite movie from each subgenre. And I'm going to tag a few people at the end, so whose response I want to see. So yeah. Now before I begin, I want to get two horror subgenres that aren't my favorite out of the way. And that's the torture subgenre and the found footage subgenre. I'm not really a big fan of those. They're okay, but they're not anywhere near my favorites. So, but I know that they're very popular. They have their fans, so I figured I'd at least need to mention them in this video. So for my favorite of the torture subgenre would be an obvious choice, probably the most well-known, and that's Saw, or even Saw 2. And also kind of like the first Hostel film as well, directed by Eli Roth. I really like the last half where the main character gets revenge on some of those scumbags that were torturing people. He kills that Dutch businessman that murdered and tortured his best friend at the end. I love that's the best part where he kills the guy in the bathroom, gets revenge on him. I really like that. But my favorite is probably Saw. And as for the found footage genre, let's go with another really well-known movie, probably the one that really popularized this subgenre. That's the Blair Witch Project. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of found footage. I don't really like Paranormal Activity or any of that. But I think Blair Witch is probably, is one of the first and is probably the best in my opinion. But again, I'm not the biggest fan of that subgenre to begin with. So I haven't seen a whole lot of those. So whatever. Anyway, moving on. Let's go and get down to the top 10. My top 10 favorite horror subgenres and my favorite movie from each one. Now, for the first one, let's go ahead and start out with what's very likely my favorite horror subgenre, the slasher subgenre. And for that one, it's a very obvious choice, Halloween. Now, this was also my choice for the horror genre movie in the top 10 movie genres tag that Sean Erschen tagged me in. And I talked about this a lot in that video, and I've talked about it a lot on this channel. Just to summarize, it's a masterpiece. It's the 1978 classic directed by my favorite director, John Carpenter. Michael Myers is my favorite horror villain. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is my favorite final girl. Dr. Loomis, played by Donald Pleasence, is one of my favorite horror protagonists. It's a masterpiece in every way. It's flawless. I've talked about it at length on this channel, so let's go ahead and move on, because I've talked about that one a whole lot. Okay, so next we have the ghost subgenre, ghosts and haunted houses, the paranormal stuff. There's a lot of good ones I could have went with. Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, of course. But I'm going to go with The Shining. This is a flawless masterpiece. It's based on the Stephen King novel, directed by Stanley Kubrick, starring Jack Nicholson. It takes place in the Overlook Hotel, which is, basically Jack Torrance, but Jack Nicholson goes insane, tries to murder his family with an axe in the haunted Overlook Hotel, which is full of ghosts. And his son, Danny, is like psychic and can see visions and stuff. So, this is the basic premise. And I talked about this one a lot in my last video, which is my top 10 Stephen King adaptions video. And I've reviewed it as well on this channel. So I'm talking about this one a lot too. So let's go and move on. Next we have the zombie subgenre. There's a lot of good ones I could have went with there as well. Most people's favorite is probably Dawn of the Dead. And I agree, that's a great one. That's a really, really, really good movie. But I'm going to go with Return of the Living Dead. This is my personal favorite. Dawn of the Dead might be scarier and technically better in a lot of ways. But this has always been the most enjoyable for me. It's very fun, very entertaining. It's basically a horror comedy. I love the punk rockers. characters, and I think the old people in this movie are even cooler than the young people. Clu Gallagher, James Karen, Don Calfa, their characters, and also Tom Matthews, who was also in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. He's always great. Great cast, great characters, very memorable scenes. Some pretty scary, some genuinely scary moments as well. Great makeup, great special effects. The zombies look amazing. I've always been a fan of the more decayed, rotting zombies than the ones that just kind of look like people, freshly reanimated corpses. I like ones that have been decomposing for a long time and have come back to life. So while I love the Romero movies, I kind of prefer the zombies in this one to the Romero zombies, but they're both great. So I reviewed this one on my channel as well, and I've talked about it a lot. So let's move on. Next we have the vampires subgenre. And as you probably already know, my favorite for that one is Fright Night. Of course, there's also Lost Boys and all the Dracula adaptions, but my favorite's always been Fright Night. It's the most entertaining. It's a very, very fun movie. Great cast, great characters. Chris Sarandon, of course, is Jerry Dandridge, the main villain, the vampire. William Ragsdale is Charlie. Roddy McDowell is Peter Vincent. Stephen Jeffries is Evil Ed. Lots of great characters. Great scenery, great atmosphere. Very, very, very fun movie. Very enjoyable to watch. I saw this at the theater a few years ago, and it was a blast. I love seeing it on the big screen because it's always been one of my favorites. It's pretty much it's kind of a love letter to the classic vampire movies, from several decades ago. It kind of feels like one of those. Kind of has the tone of one of the movies like that. Pretty cool. Great movie, great flick. I've reviewed it on my channel already, and I've talked about it before, so let's move on. Next, we have the werewolf subgenre, and for my choice for that would be American Werewolf in London. But it's really a tie between this one and The Howling. I also really love Silver Bullet and the original The Wolfman from 1941. They're great as well. But I'll go with American Werewolf in London as my favorite. This is one of the first movies I ever saw to have, a lot of comic relief. It kind of blends horror and humor a lot. There's a lot of really funny scenes. Basically, David and his friend Jack get attacked by a werewolf. Jack is killed, violently ripped to shreds, just mutilated. It's very bloody. And David survives, but he was bitten, so he becomes a werewolf now. And he sees his friend Jack as a ghost who looks worse and worse every time we see him, which is awesome. He comes in and warns them that he's going to turn into a werewolf and kill people. So, really good movie. I love the scenes with David and Jack. David Naughton and Griffin Dunn. I love their back and forth. It was a great idea to have his friend return as a ghost, and he looks more and more decayed. Great makeup on that, by the way. Great werewolf special effects. The werewolf transformation of this is amazing. It looks like a real werewolf captured on real werewolf transformation captured on film. Way better than the CGI crap of today. Werewolves in today's movies just look like crap in comparison to this one. Great movie. I reviewed that one as well, so I highly recommend it. Moving on. All right, so next is my favorite sci-fi horror movie. There's a lot of good ones here too. I kind of went with The Thing, maybe Predator, or even The Terminator, which I kind of consider a horror movie in a lot of ways. It has a lot of horrific scenes. The first one, that is. All the sequels aren't really horror, but the first one feels very much like a horror movie. But anyway, my choice is going to be Alien, directed by Ridley Scott from 1979. I've always loved this movie. It's very scary. Definitely blends sci-fi and horror really well. The Xenomorph, which is the main alien, looks great. Great design, great costume, great special effects. And of course, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley is one of those badass protagonists ever. Probably my favorite female protagonist in a horror movie. Yeah, she's always been a great heroine. And she was in most of the sequels as well. She's great. The alien looks great. Really scary, suspenseful scenes. Of course, when the alien first rips out of Kane's chest, that was just, wow, when I first saw that, I was like, whoa, that just blew me away. I did not see that coming. Very gruesome moment. And there's a lot of great moments like that in this movie. So I actually haven't reviewed this on my channel yet, but I really, really need to. I've talked about it a lot before, but I need to give it its own video, because it definitely deserves it. Alien, the 1979 classic by Ridley Scott. Aliens, the first sequel by James Cameron, is really good too. So it's very close between the two, but this one feels the most like a horror movie, and so I'll go with that for my favorite. of the sci-fi horror subgenre. By the way, these aren't really in any order. They're just kind of in the order that I listed them, that I wrote them down. So, but yeah, let's go and move on. All right, next we have the foreign horror subgenre. And of course, my favorite foreign horror is Italian horror, for sure. But let's narrow it down even more to the giallo subgenre. And my favorite giallo movie is probably Deep Red. Giallo, of course, is like an Italian horror movie. It's like, I guess, like a thriller or mystery. Some people don't agree on the definition of what a giallo movie is, but I think that's basically what it means, at least to me. And my favorite is Deep Red. My favorite Italian horror in general is probably Suspiria. So you could count that as well. But as for giallos, Deep Red is definitely where it's at. It's Dario Argento directed it. And he's my favorite Italian horror director. It's just great. It's a masterpiece. I suggest you see it. I don't think I've reviewed this yet. I don't think it's got its own video on my channel yet. But I did talk about it in my top 20 Italian horror movies video. So for more info, check that video out because I talked about it at length in that episode. But yeah, Deep Red, my favorite giallo horror, one of my favorite Italian horror of the foreign subgenre of horror. All right, next we have the home invasion horror subgenre, and for this one, there's a lot of great entries that are more recent, kind of the more modern horror films have had a lot of home invasions. There's a lot of home invasion titles of the modern era, and so I'm gonna go with The Strangers. I could also went with You're Next, which is another great, more modern horror film, but I think The Strangers is really good. Of course, it stars Liv Tyler. Her and her boyfriend, or ex-boyfriend, ex-fiance, or whatever. I think they broke up or something. He was going to propose to her, or he proposed to her and she said no, and then, I don't know. Anyway, it's not really important. They're in the house and they get interrupted by 3 masked killers who just come and terrorize them. They break into their home and just put them through all sorts of hell. Some very creepy, unsettling scenes. It's very, very shocking. Will really have you on edge. Lots of tension. Lots of great scares. I really like this movie. I think it's pretty good. It's been a while since I've seen it, so it's not really fresh in my mind. I need to give it another watch. And I know there's a sequel, The Strangers Pray at Night, I believe it's called. I haven't seen that one yet, but I need to check it out. I've heard mixed things about it, but I need to check it out. But, so I don't know about that one, but I know this one's pretty good. And it's probably my favorite in the home invasion subgenre of horror. So next we have the killer animal subgenre. There's a lot of pretty good ones for this one, but I feel like there's only one correct answer, at least to me, and that's Jaws. Pretty obvious choice, but I feel like that's the one definitive answer when it comes to killer animal movies. Now, some people don't really consider this a horror movie, but I don't know. I think it's got plenty of horrific scenes, very gruesome scenes. Being in the ocean with a shark is one of the scariest things I can think of, so I think it's definitely very much counts as a horror movie. Of course, it's one of Steven Spielberg's most well-known films. It's, he's one of the best directors ever, and this is a masterpiece. This is one of his best movies. Great characters, great cast. Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw are all really good. I love their chemistry together. It kind of feels like 2 different movies, because the first half is kind of focuses on the shark attacks. It's people getting killed by and eaten by a great white shark. They're dragged into the water and eaten. Very, very scary, disturbing stuff there. Because, again, that's one of the most terrifying things I can think of. And then the last half is those 3 men going on a boat out in the ocean and hunting down the shark. So it kind of feels like a different movie. In a way, that's what I really appreciate that about it. The opening scene is one of the most iconic openings in movie history. She goes swimming and then the shark attacks her and drags her under. Very shocking stuff. Lots of great scenes like that. Very, very, very scary stuff. The shark, the effects of the great white shark, Bruce, I guess he's called, don't really hold up all that well. It does look very fake. They did use a real shark for a few scenes. Which that of course looks great, but the shark looking fake and the mechanical shark malfunctioning and not working as well as it was supposed to actually worked to the movie's advantage and added to the charm, because it made it to where the camera was kind of like the shark. We didn't see much of the shark. That made it a lot more scary and impactful, because you had to use your imagination a lot more. So that definitely upped the impact. I think that made it, that added to the movie's charm. It worked to its advantage, like I said. So yeah, we don't see a lot of the shark until the very end, and when we do see it, it's not it's not the best effect I've ever seen, but I think it's still good. I think I don't think that takes away from the movie at all. It's still a masterpiece, still a classic in every way. It came out in 1975, and it still holds up very well today. It doesn't feel dated at all. I love it. I just love it. It's a masterpiece. I haven't reviewed it, but I need to. Alright, so finally we have the horror anthology subgenre. And my favorite for that, as if there was any doubt, is definitely Creepshow. Horror anthology, there's 5 segments. The best 2 are Something to Tide You Over with the waterlogged zombies getting their revenge, and The Crate. It was a monster coming out of a box to chow down on some humans. I already talked about this a lot in my last video, which is the top 10 Stephen King adaptations, so I won't go into too much detail here. I've also reviewed it before on my channel. It's one of the earliest videos I ever did. So check out that episode of Hellhound's Midnight Spook Show for more info on that. Great movie, great anthology, and I think it's definitely the best when it comes to that subgenre. It was inspired by the old EC horror comics like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Hunt the Fear, all that stuff. It has a very comic book feel to it. It even shows that the stories come from a comic book in the wraparound segment with Tom Atkins. I love the animated segments. I love the cartoon parts of the movie. It's really good. Well, that about does it. Those are my top 10 favorite horror subgenres, with a couple honorable mentions thrown in, and my favorite movie from each one. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So I'm going to tag a few people. Again, the idea was by JacksonKnight Productions. He's the one who came up with this idea. I decided to make it into a tag video. So if he wants to make a video, that'd be great as well. I'd love to hear his choices. That'd be cool. But I'm also going to tag Sean Erschen from the Horror Corner, Bronco Juggalo, Horrific Nightmares JM, LastVenom 76, Horror Miser Monty G, Kweeny Todd, Adelyn's Horror World, Anthropomantic Fiend, and anybody else who wants to make a response. Even if I didn't tag you, if you want to make a video with your top 10 favorite horror subgenres and your favorite movie from each one, feel free. Just let me know that you did in the comments below. Tell them you were tagged by Hellhound from the HorrorMetal's channel. Tell them I sent you. And be sure to mention that it was an original idea by JacksonKnight Productions, who commented on that top 10 movie genres tag that I did, and suggested that I do make a video like this. Anybody who wants to make a response video, feel free. Tag, you're it. As Sean Erschen would say, answer the call. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound. This has been my Midnight Spook Show on the HorrorMetal channel. Until next time, later.